Okay, the recording is on. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I mean, so excited. We have some great guests, and I'll tell you about that in just a second, who they are and what we're doing here. Before we do that, I just want to give just a little bit of context of this call. What this call is called is to, where did it go there? Stay connected to your wisdom and get a website you love. And the reason for this call, the big why, Simon Sinek says, always start with why. If you don't know his TED Talk, highly recommended, one of the most watched TED Talks the world has ever seen. So why are we here? And the why for me is, in my work helping people around branding and marketing and how they're going to present themselves to the world, do a lot of prep work about getting ready for people to go to web designers. I send a lot of people to Monique and Sue and Rachel. And also sometimes get the experience of kind of picking somebody up after they have a web experience that isn't so positive. One example, I'll tell a story just to give a sense of the why. One woman that came to me, she spent $10,000 on a website and some branding and some, cards and flyers. They were beautiful, really, really, really gorgeous. And as soon as she was coming to me because they weren't working. They weren't working in the marketplace. She had never gotten a client after spending $10,000 on her branding and her marketing. And I took one look, and it felt, I don't want to disclose what she did, but let's just say an energy healer who the guy who built her website mostly designed them to sell cars. It just didn't fit, right? Gorgeous. I mean, slick and beautiful, more beautiful than almost any website I'd ever seen, but you could tell the pictures didn't fit, the copy didn't fit. It was not a wisdom-based site, and the work she did was incredibly deep and really nuanced and very subtle. And the person who built it, you could tell, didn't understand the work. And that got communicated visually, through the words, through the design, in many, many different ways. And as I've been talking to people about that, talking to clients about it, and talking to these three wonderful designers who also happen to be wisdom people, and we'll talk about that in just a second, what I found is that was not a unique experience. Unfortunately, that happens more often than we like, that somebody goes to a designer and feels like, okay, you're the designer, I'll just get out of the way, and you just go do your thing. And that may or may not really serve you well. And talking to Rachel, talking to Sue, talking to Monique, and Rachel, if you're on a phone, you can see her shaking her head. She's like, yeah, Sue's shaking her head, Monique is laughing. She's like, I've seen this, right? So we started a conversation with the four of us, and here we are. So that's how we got here. We'll jump into that in just a second. Before we do that, since this is a wisdom-based call, I want to invite us to just take a mindful minute in a second. And in this mindful minute, what I'm going to invite you to do is to just have the intention of bringing whatever your attention's been focused on already today, the way maybe a mother would scoop up a child when it was time to come off of the playground and get into the car and go somewhere else, to be that kind, but also that direct with your attention in this minute. So I'm going to go ahead and time that, and then let's go ahead and go now.
One thing is obvious, the call quality is very poor. But this guy, yeah.
Great, and that's about a minute. So welcome. Had a couple of people join us. We just did a mindful minute. If you're wondering, where did they go? Why is it so quiet? That was actually intentional. And we've got people from all over the US here and some other places as well. I want to introduce our wonderful, wonderful guests here. And what I thought to do is as I introduce each of you, if you could just tell us where you live, and a little bit about your wisdom self, and then one sentence about your web self, and your web design, web strategist, website relationship. So that's the ask. And let's start with Sue. And Sue Kearney is a wonderful designer and brand strategist and priestess and decades of wisdom experience. Sue's in the Bay Area in California. Sue just launched a brand new website, so everything we're going to talk about is really, 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 really fresh for her. Sue, welcome. Tell us a little bit about you as a wisdom person and a little bit about you as a designer.
Okay, great. I've been on an internal wisdom journey for a long time, for decades, and over the last bunch of years, I've been more and more bringing my internal spiritual wisdom life and my business life together. And this last iteration of my website, which launched last Friday, is the most transparent my brand has ever been. There is almost nothing of me, except maybe the details of my health story, that is not all over this website. My brand, and I've come out of the closet as a priestess. I'm claiming I'm standing sovereign in the space of being a business priestess. I'm bringing everything that I've done on my spiritual journey to my work. And that informs a lot of what's going to come out of me in this conversation today, because I find in my work with other healers, wisdom teachers, and wellness business people, that when they don't do that, they're not satisfied. They're not getting the results that they want from a $2,500 website to a sky's the limit website. So yeah, so that's the stand I'm taking in my design work.
Thank you, Sue. And thanks for being here. Really appreciate you doing this.
It's an honor.
Monique, I don't know whether to call you Monique Welsh or Monique Meyer. Monique got married about a year ago, and I think a personal change, and that's how she's known. But I think in the business world, since your website, Monique Welsh, MoniqueWelsh.com up in Toronto. Monique, we're really, really just so honored. She does incredible work, not only with web design, but all sorts of strategy and implementation. Monique, thank you for being here. And same question, tell us a little bit about you as a wisdom person, and a little bit about you and your work with web design and web strategy.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. And yes, I'm having a little identity crisis being a Mrs., but I'll go by Monique Welch for the purpose of this conversation. My wisdom journey started kind of on a sad note. It really began when my mom passed away. That was almost 10 years ago. And since then, I've been trying to figure out who I am and what my work is in the world, and really move away from being the person that I think that people like my mom and my dad should be proud of, and really just starting to own who I am. And so that has been my wisdom journey. I'm the youngest in the family. I'm the only entrepreneur. And so being totally different, the rebel with red hair, It's been fun. It's been fun to explore. It hasn't always been enjoyable because I really have so much confusion, but thankful to reading and great groups like Wisdompreneurs, I've been able to find more and more of myself. So that's been really exciting. From a website perspective, I totally resonate with this entire conversation because I've once changed my website 6 times in a single year. And that was because nothing felt like me. So even though I can help people like quickly just figure out, okay, this is what you need to do, and I do very intuitive design, for myself, it was like, oh, what do I want to put out here, and how do I want to put out? I'm seeing Rachel's face. I'm like, yes. It's such a hard thing, and yet as a designer, I don't really trust that process to anyone, which is, tough. But after my 6 iterations and then my 7th revision this year, I finally have been able to build a presence that I love. It's very, very simple, very much like me, where it's like, you know, you come to my site, it's because someone told you about me. It's by invitation only. And that allows me to work with some of the greatest clients building their websites. And as Paul said, planning my strategy or their strategy for their site.
Great. Thank you, Monique. Again, thanks for being here and being willing to have this conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Then we have RKA, Rachael Kay Albers of RKA Inc. from Chicago originally, or suburbs of Chicago, now in Mexico. Whole big life change there. Also, not too long ago got married, and also very, 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 very recently just launched a website. So this is all very fresh for Rachael as well. Rachael, welcome. Thanks for being here, and tell us again a little bit about your wisdom journey and a little bit about your web design, web strategy journey.
That was so specific. You even knew I was from the suburbs of Chicago.
I know. You think I was paying attention or something?
Look at you.
I didn't say Monique is like raised in Barbados and moved to Toronto. Like, I know a little bit about all of you. So
I was Brooklyn. You don't know what the 805 area code is. You still don't know that. So we all have something to learn in this world.
That's right.
Well, you know, my wisdom journey kind of synced up with my move to Mexico. When I moved here, I was in kind of a life existential, who am I in this world? What is my purpose? How do I relate to others? Kind of a crisis, and had been doing all of the things that, you know, mom and dad wanted you to do and feeling very empty inside. And so coming here, I was really ripping myself away from, you know, just following the mold of what I should be and starting to explore, you know, what you call the wisdom side of myself. And it actually was kind of funny. This ties into the web side of myself, is that it wasn't really until I started attracting a large number of self-described wisdompreneurs or spiritual entrepreneurs that I began to own my own wisdom story and call it that, you know, describe it that way. So it was actually through a lot of my clients and really digging into their brands and their work that I became opened up to this side of me that I was obviously attracting a wisdom clientele. So yeah, so that's a little, you know, my wisdom story. It's in the making, because I just think we're all works in progress every day, just getting up and doing it better or wiser or just more consciously than we did it yesterday, or trying at least. And that's the wisdom side. And the website is, I'm a web designer and a digital strategist. And just as I see the wisdom part of my story kind of wrapped into my whole life, I see design and strategy kind of going together. That's my philosophy of really believing that the design can't happen in a vacuum. It has to happen in a context of deep inner work, especially when you're working with service or personal brands. And yeah, my website just came out last week, rkaink.com. Super excited about it. And Monique, I probably had about 10 different versions of it that never saw the light of day, because I'm not as brave as you. Because you put out your sites and you're like, it's out there, I'm doing it. And I spent years waiting until I had what I felt was something I could really be proud of. And I'm not changing it. It's done. All right. It's done now. And I love it. I'm happy with it. So anyway, yeah, that's me.
Paul, I'm not hearing you.
I was saying, what a great story, Rachael, and thank you so much. You're to get a sense of how much difference we have here in terms of web design and backgrounds here. So that was part of what we were trying to do in terms of our esteemed panelists here. So let's start off with, I'd love for y'all, tell one story. I told one starting up, but a story of where things didn't go well, right? Where the design process and the depth of a service provider, it just didn't sync up, right? We're not trying to blame anyone. I'd ask that we not name names, right? And then, oh yeah, you know about that terrible designer that lives over in Kentucky? That's not what we're trying to do. Get a sense, like, what does it look like when somebody's web presence and their wisdom are disconnected? What does that look like? Give us a snapshot of something you've seen.
I got one.
Go.
Yeah, the story you tell, Paul, about the $10,000 client or the $10,000 website that was just a total waste, I feel like that has happened probably a number of times that I don't even want to admit with my own clients. And the times that it has happened the most, I mean, one example would be, client comes to me, they've worked with a business coach, so they've got, in their mind, they've done what they need to do, they're ready for a designer. And they just got this gobbledygook of ideas. They hand it to me, and they do exactly what you say, Paul, which is, all right, go make magic with this, make me some money, make me a website, and that's it. And I'll bring back the business. In this case, with this particular client, they use their business coaches. Like, my business coach is telling me I need the site up within a month. I gotta go. I can't wait any longer. So we just need to get it done. And so in the past, when I didn't own my process like I do today, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. And let's push for that really tight deadline, and let's go by what your business coach says, and let's follow the rules according to how you've interpreted them. And a month later, we've got a website, and it just doesn't work. And it's not going to work. And it doesn't work now, and it doesn't work in 6 months, and it doesn't work in a year. And the main reason is because that, in this example, the client and me, because I was a part of this, were ignoring our intuition, ignoring our instincts, ignoring what we were being called to do, which was to spend time really putting together these pieces of this process to make a website that was going to plug into this person's brand and their long-term business goals. But we ignored all that, and we went with the coach who said, you got to get this done in a month and start before you're ready, and it's all about speed. And we went in that direction, and that's what doomed us. So that's my story. Monique, I feel like you got one.
Oh, yeah.
No,
I'm shaking, isn't it?
I totally understand that I was a client who had a business coach who was telling me I need to get it done. And I was like, screw you, this is not ready. It's going to be ready when it's ready. So too bad. So I totally got that from the perspective of the client being like feeling that pressure. I'd say I'm very, very lucky that I've never had a client who I worked with from beginning to end on their website, and they didn't feel like it matched who they were. So I feel like really, really lucky that happened. What I do have a lot of is people who've worked with other designers who have a horrible website that they can't use, they can't update, everything is broken, they don't even have admin access, and then they need a miracle because they have an engagement coming up and it must work and look amazing in like 2 weeks. So yeah, that's been my experience. So those people, I tend to kind of pull them back a little bit and help them to slow down and realize like what is priority and what can wait. So we work on the things that are super urgent first, get that up, get it done properly, and then we can move into the smaller things.
For me,
then you just wave your magic wand, right, Monique?
Are they alchemists?
Or you send them to Sue. She's a priestess. She can help them, right?
That's
She's
right.
got a wand, right?
I have a wand. I have many wands.
Cool. Sue, how about you?
I've been, the last couple of websites I did were for solo healing practices. And I'm bringing another piece of this pie here too. When I've done work that has really matched. I've up-leveled my clients' brand working with them, up-leveled their brand, up-leveled their website, and gave them something that they really resonated with and loved. And these are not my ideal client anymore, because it just, I can't help them I can't help people who can't get behind. If you build it, they will come. That's by some magic. If they don't make a relationship with their ideal clients in other ways, that tree in the forest may not get seen. I'm throwing a lot of metaphors at you, but something will stick, I know. And also about the slow pace. I've been promoting my new website. I'm really excited about it. I'm happy to share it. And in my promotion of it, I revealed that it actually took me nearly a full pregnancy term. It took me 8 months from I'm going to do this to launching my website. It took me 8, and it's like, do your clients take that long? Of course not. But I am a really picky client. And when I am my own client, it takes, like Monique said, I will give every single piece of it a shit ton of time. And with my clients, I have a potty mouth, sorry. Not sorry. With my clients, I do that thing Monique talked about of, okay, let's start in the middle and do the stuff that has to be done first. But if this has to happen on a shorter timeline, let's put this stuff hold this stuff in a place where we can circle back to it and deepen and broaden your brand and your outreach and your engagement so that this thing can work for you.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
That's what it looks like when it doesn't work. And part of the reason we wanted to ask that question is just awareness raising, right? If you're listening in on this call, either live, thank you so much, or you're going to watch it later or listen later. But we just wanted to kind of give you a sense of how it can start to come off the rails, hopefully to just, if it does start to, oh, that's what Sue was talking about. Oh, that's what Monique was talking about. So anyway, thank you. So how about, what's your best tip? What's your best tip for helping it go well? If you're going to help somebody really bring their wisdom, bring the depth of what they do, and have that come through in a way that just shines on their site, what's your best tip for that?
It's to really, you can call it strategy, or you can just call it getting in touch with your building your brand story, knowing what your brand story is, knowing what the point of your business is and what you're trying to do, and spending some time in discernment, in work to really identify that. For me, it's like, a foundation for a house. Doing the brand development, the not the pretty stuff, but the bones, the bricks of what the brand is and what you are and who you serve and what you do and why you do it and how. Knowing that before you start with the pretty, shiny, gorgeous representation of it, then you can build something that can actually sustain you and serve your clients and grow. And when you don't do that, you're just slapping something pretty out there in the world, but I don't know how well it's going to serve you. I know that from my own history. There's a website called the Wayback Machine that lets you go back and look. I had forgotten what my birthday looked like. And I went way back.
We're about to all get really embarrassed.
What is that? I did this? So, it's been an unfolding for me, and I've studied with some really serious wisdom teachers about heart-centered marketing and the order of the doing of things that can really serve your business. And I think that work, and I put my own special twist on it. Of unmasking your brand and bringing it to life and getting clear on it. But we're all talking about the same thing and the right order, the right timing.
Thanks, Sue. What about you, Monique? What would you say about that?
For me, I always ask my clients, I do a lot of consultation before I start any project for my client. And one of the reasons why is because I want to get to know them and their personality so I can communicate that on their site. But I think the first and the most important thing that you have to answer, regardless of who you're working with, before you even go to someone for a website, is why do you want it? Like, why are you wanting this website? What is it supposed to do for you? Who is it supposed to attract? What action do you want people to take when they come to the site? So answering those questions first helps you to get really clear on how your website is going to show up. Because like for me, my website is not like how I build my client's site. I work with people by referral, which means that I don't need to tell a lot about myself and sell a lot of my site, of my work through my site. So my core focus on my site is, this is what I look like. This is my team. Book a call with me. That's it. That's all I want you to do. But if you're building a site because you want to have a place where you can create a community, you want a place where people can come and read your blog and interact with your content and whatever, then you need to make sure you have that focus in mind when you're building it, when you're choosing the right person to work with you on it. And what's really strange to me, like I had this happen a couple of times. You see in Facebook groups, you see somebody post, hey, I'm looking for a web developer. And they give like no specification on the skills that they need. Like they think that all developers are the same, all designers are the same, and they just pick one out of a hat and they hire them.
And they say, and what do you charge? Let me know in the comments. What do you for an undescribed
Yeah.
fee.
Yeah. No criteria. So don't do that. Know why you want to have your site and what it's supposed to do for you. That's my advice.
And be willing to talk about it before you talk about fees.
Oh yeah. I don't even mention fees when people reach out to me. Like, let's get clear on what you want and then we can talk about price.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rachel, you're shaking your head. Yeah. What would you say?
Now I got it all boiled up in me. Now I'm all full of excitement. I would add, and I think that it's, I might not say this if the people on this call were different, but knowing a little bit about Sue's work and knowing about Monique's work, I would say that I can feel confident that one of the main issues that I see is when people kind of see their website, like, here's my business over here, here's my marketing and maybe my social media and my email, my this, and here's my website over here.
Yeah.
Okay. And so a lot of the times the clients come and they're looking for the website totally disconnected from their business model, their marketing plan. And so one of my best pieces of advice to avoid that is when you're looking for someone to help you with your website, look for more than a web designer. And I think that Sue and I think that Monique both would agree that they're more than web designers. That's part of my new branding message is when you need more than a website, you need more than a web designer. And just like Sue and Monique were saying about getting kind of those foundational pieces in place and knowing why you want the website, the way that I feel that we've set up our clients for success is by making it mandatory that we are discussing the website in the context of your business model, your business plan, how your business runs, and that comes with it, your goals. Do you want to be a thought leader? Do you want to be, the biggest doctor in your town? Do you want, what are your goals? Then moving into the marketing strategy, how are you going to reach your goals? And your website isn't the first thing in your marketing plan, and it's not the last thing in your marketing plan. It's in the middle there somewhere. It interacts and is part of a much bigger process. So, we kind of force our clients by the time we get to the website and the web design is kind of like the cherry on the sundae. Like, we really love and believe in creating gorgeous, delicious, beautiful designs, but that's the least important thing is how beautiful it is. Now, we still want to make beautiful websites, but when we get to the website, it's the last step. It's not, let's talk about colors in our first conversation. No, we'll talk about colors after we talk about your brand, after we talk about your audience, and after we talk about all these things. So, Sue, you had mentioned like being willing to have those conversations, and I just had a sales call. Funny, just to split this script, I found that the more that I just stand in this process, a client that comes onto a sales call that says, I need my website next month, will naturally, without me having to push them, by the end of the call say, you know what, I could wait a couple more months. I think that we really need to do this right. And so it's about, and I told this client that I had this conversation with yesterday, you should expect by the time we are done working together that we're going to know each other pretty well. Like, it's very rare that I walk away from a client relationship without a relationship. We get to know each other because we have to go deep into your business. We have to go deep into your brand. So yeah, I totally agree with Sue. Being willing to have those conversations, those deep dives, and being ready for it to be uncomfortable. Because it can be painful actually at some points, or just weird, uncomfortable, vulnerable, scary, all that stuff. So yeah.
Well, there's a reason I was excited to have you three on this call, because you all are designers who say that design isn't the only thing that's important. And as somebody who's doing branding and marketing consulting, to send somebody to a designer, just like who starts, Rachel, to use your analogy, hi, it's so good to meet you. What colors do you like? Right? I understand.
What fonts do you want to use? Yeah.
Yeah, what's the fonts we're talking? Or like, give me a sense of the pictures here. All of which are really, really, really fun. But I trust you all to have a sense that it wants to be synced up. And especially a modern website, you can like pull things in from all your YouTube channels, can be on your site. Like, there's so many ways these things can interface in a way that even 3 years ago they couldn't. So I see you all as people who understand that and are committed to that, and I honor you for that. Thank you. So let's talk about, I think both Monique and all three of you, we're talking about, we didn't use this word, but you'll hear the word co-creation in the wisdom world. Right? Co-creation, co-create that, let's co-create this, right? And in a sense, like, when it goes well, a website is a co-creation, right? I don't have the design skills to create the site I wanted, and I'm really grateful for Rachel, like our collaboration and how we went back and forth, and it was not a 1 month process, right? And I know you all, I've sent people to you all and look forward to send more people to you all. That there's a time frame in that digging in and that co-creation process. And I think that's key from where I sit about if it's gonna work and if it's gonna work well, it's about having that kind of relationship where the client's wisdom is welcomed, and not even more than welcome. That's too weak a word, like midwifed, right? Like giving birth to, right? Like bring it on. And there's a way in which that wisdom is seen, but also not totally just whatever you want, honey, right? I've seen that, I've seen designers who are so excited to like work with somebody and try to create their vision that they won't have the hard conversations about brand or marketing, or that you don't really seem to have as much clarity about who your ideal client is or what your offerings are, right? So there's this beautiful, when it works, there's this beautiful co-creative dance that I wonder if you could how would you talk to that? How would you describe either who you co-create really well with, or if you were gonna share some wisdom about how do you do that? Because to me, if I was going to pick one thing to walk away from this call with, it's like, I got to find a designer that I can create together with well. Sue, what would you say about that?
I would say that you either want to come to me having worked deeply with a business coach where you have actually worked out, defined who your client is and what you're doing and what your marketing strategy and your brand story, or you want to do that work with me, because this way, and I call it collaboration, co-creation, collaboration. This way our collaboration will really work for you. And even if I'm doing the writing for a client, I have them write first, because I don't want my voice on their website. I want their voice on their website. So I do a lot of that building block work with them, where I have them write out answers to, describing your ideal client, or describing your offers, or writing your own about page. And then I can take it and flesh it out for them and put it in the order that I think is most effective. But that's the thing to build into your timeline and your budget my strategist that I'm working with now said, when you do that work, when you build your brand story first, your website is an investment, and when you don't, it's just an expense. And that's a really powerful difference for me. And the other thing, Paul, this is a little off topic, but you said something about when it doesn't work. And another aspect of the not working is when you hire a rock star designer and spend a lot of money, like the one that you described in your story, the $10,000 website that was for car salesmen and didn't work for your client. I've been at the mercy of a diva. I've worked with people. I've seen how that kind of design works, and it doesn't serve the client. It just doesn't serve the client, because then your brand is now a kind of a design conceit of this other person that really has nothing to do with you.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah. Rachel, what would you say on this one?
Yeah, I think Sue really made a lot of great points. So it's like, oh gosh, now I have to think of new things that Sue didn't say. But here's a tip. One tip I would have for someone looking for a designer that can help them move through this process and really co-create with them is looking for a designer, developer, strategist, whatever they call themselves, that has a process, that has a defined process. Because for me, I feel like my job as a designer and strategist is to continue honing my process to make it easier to really give that experience of co-creation to my client. So for example, for a client that struggles to put into words their vision, right? Like they've got all these ideas, but they don't know how to explain it to you. Having a designer that can create little exercises and give you steps to help you kind of tease out what's in your head. And so for us, we have a really kind of defined process that helps us, that, you know, that gives us the structure we need to make sure that we're staying on our timeline, that we're checking everything up that we need to do, but also that I have to be creating spaces to make it easier for my clients who are not designers to feel as though they've designed their own site, like just like what you were saying. And so that's my goal, is that when we walk away from a client relationship, that they're like, I did this. They're like, this was me. You know, somehow RKA found a way for me to tell her what I was in my head, and she did it. And so I create these milestones and little exercises for clients to be able to tease out their vision and to do it in a process that's all leading up to this goal. So I think when you're looking for a designer who's going to help you co-create, you want a designer, you want a team, you know, an agency, whatever, that has a process that's been created for your success, not just like, hey, come in, you know, what are your colors, what are your fonts, give me your photos, and let's do it, you know. Yeah, so that's my thought about co-creation.
Pick from this template or that template, and yeah.
That's just what I was going to say, because what I find, you know, people who are budget shopping for a website tend to end up with those kind of situations where you literally, okay, you need a website. Well, you have 5 templates to choose from, and then we'll add your content, and that's it. So there is no co-creation, but that's because you're not really investing in it. You know, you can have a cheap website if you want, but will it serve you? Probably no. So my process is a little different. Even though I have red hair and I wear bright colors, I am definitely an introvert. And for me, what my clients tend to say about working with me is that I'm a really good listener. So my system or my strategy is to ask very, very important clarifying questions as I have those conversations with you. But then I need to go away and take everything you said and translate it into something that matches the vision that I get intuitively that you're looking for. So that's kind of my process. It's like, let's talk, let me get clear on what you're looking for, then let me go away, tap into it on my own, get creative, get my Sharpies out and sketch your wireframe. And then I come back to the client and I say, look, okay, here's what my vision is for your site. Tell me what you think, give me your feedback. And together we add the flesh to the bone. So we add the flesh to the wireframe. So it's a little different from, you know, I guess other design processes. I don't even know, but that's my style because that's who I am. But my clients enjoy it because I am a good listener. So when I come back to you, there's not a very big gap between what you said you wanted and what I've presented to you. And I can show you exactly how your users are going to flow through the site. And I think the method doesn't really matter once the communication is there, once the client is being heard, once their information and the things that matter to them are being represented in the final product.
Great. Thanks, Monique. Great tips. Really great tips. And I agree, you're a great listener.
Thank you.
I got to be on Monique's podcast at one point. And I was like, what an amazing host she is. Because I got that sense. You're not just like looking for, okay, give me your question. But I don't know if you've ever, the behind the scenes, I don't want to like ruin anybody's like favorite podcast, but it's a common practice to be a guest, and you like email them the questions, right? And then they just ask you the questions, and they did their duty, and the guest, you know, kind of espews what they're going to espew, and then like it's done, right? Thank you so much, and everybody goes home. That's I don't know what percentage, but more than 50% of podcasts, that's how it works, right? And I was like doing this podcast with Monique, and your quality of listening, your quality of attention, and your willingness to kind of be in a real, genuine conversation was just palpable. So I had that experience with you, Monique. I can say from experience, you are just an incredible listener.
Thank you.
Cool. So one more question, and then I want to turn it over to, we've got all these great people here I'm sure have had either experiences or have some questions about design and some of the topics we're talking about. So let's say this. Let's say that I'm somebody who is thinking about hiring a designer. What's the most important thing for me to keep in mind? And maybe it's a question I don't even know to ask. So what is it as somebody coming into interfacing with designers? What's the most important thing for me to be asking, especially maybe if I don't know that I could or should be asking it. Rachel, how about if you start that one?
Ooh, man, this is a tough one.
We could go back to your favorite food if you want. If you don't want to, if you want an easier question.
No, it's fine. I can do this one. So what should the client be keeping in mind, should be asking or be ready to ask a designer? Well, I would say definitely ask about the process. I think that's really important. How are we going to move through this process? When are the milestones that I'm expecting? Because if you come to me and you need a new logo, you need a new kind of visual brand identity, style guide, and a website, and you might want to add this or that, and maybe need help editing your ebook or making, your opt-in look pretty, all these different things. It's important to to catalog it, to know what features you need, and then to ask the designer or, the strategist that you're working with, how would you go about bringing all these things together? And if they're like, oh, well, I'll just, we'll talk and then I'll send you some ideas, and maybe if that's what you're looking for, that sounds great. But getting a feeling for the designer's process, how they deliver milestones, what the process is to reach milestones. And actually, this is the number one question that I would ask a designer if you're on a sales call or a discovery call with a designer, would be to ask the designer what they need from you. Because a designer that has a clear picture of what, and just like Monique's going to have those like clarifying questions ready, like, let me tell you, and then she'll come back with them. But asking the designer what they're expecting from you, because the designer that comes back that's just like, I don't know, like information, pictures, money. That's going to tell you a lot about their approach. And so yesterday I had a little trial by fire. I had a call with a client that came to me and they had a bunch of nightmare experiences, and they came and they were like, listen, we've talked to all these designers and nobody got us. Like nobody could get us. And so right off the bat, that person kind of told me she likes designers that ask questions. She wanted a designer that was going to bring back to her what she needed to bring forth into the process. And so that was like my little thing of, okay, I got to bring it now. This person actually doesn't want me to listen to her today. She wants me to listen, but she wants me to show through my listening that I get her. Like, it's not just about me sitting back and being passive. So, and she basically asked me to ask her what I needed from her to kind of show, because she needed to know, was I going to bring it to this process, or was I going to sit passively by and not get her and not come to the table with my own creative input? So asking the designer what they need from you will give you a lot of information about how prepared they are and their process and all that stuff.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. Monique, what would you say about that one? Question to ask, and maybe I don't even know I should be asking it.
Well, I think Rachel really covered it, because when you're choosing a designer, for me, I guess I'm more intuitive when it comes to making that decision. I think it's important for you to feel comfortable with hearing what's important to you and not have the designer kind of force you into a particular space. Like, there are times when you have to be honest and say, look, that color that you want in your site is really not going to work for your brand. Like, you cannot be in health and wellness and want red and orange as your brand colors. It just won't work. Okay, so there are times when you need to be honest and upfront with somebody about their questions and the information that they want. But I think if I was going to hire a designer, I'd want to know that they are willing to listen to what my input is and to really give me space to feel like I'm part of the creative process. So like Rachael said, knowing what their process is important, because I want to know, like, where do I fit in the whole picture? Do I just give you all the stuff and you go ahead and do it? Or do I get to give you feedback? How many revisions do I get? What is the process for if I need something updated? Like, there's so many questions, but for me, the most important thing is, do I feel understood? Do I feel like this person is someone that I can share my honest feedback with and be heard and get a solution as a result? So that's, yeah.
Thanks so much, Monique. Sue, your thoughts on this?
Yes, I have one that you guys didn't get to. Yay. So I've been kind of hitting a specialty of working with people who have a brand and a website and they want to rebrand. it's not working for them for one or two of many reasons, and they want to rebrand. And in some cases, they have a static website from the year Gimmel, as my mother would say, from a long time ago. And they don't know about content managed websites. And so I haven't really worked out how I'm going to do this yet, but an important part of my initial conversations is going to be, if they don't bring it up, for me to bring it up, of what is your relationship to this website going to be after we're done? I am not in the business of being a website maintenance gal. I don't want to be that gal. I would maybe hire it out, but I don't want to be maintaining client websites. And I am finding that some wellnesspreneurs and solos who are not don't have big marketing chops, don't know what to do with a WordPress website. And have kind of left their relationship with me, with the website, that they didn't want to do the work necessary to be able to keep it alive, dynamic, and current. So I'm working out how to make that a discernment point in my conversation with people. I may, in fact, turn some people away and say, you maybe want to look at a simpler DIY solution like Wix or Squarespace, because even a WordPress site, which is easy to maintain, is not easy for everybody. It's just not. And some solos, I don't think, are willing to do that work. And so I feel like I've left them with an albatross instead of something really lively and useful. So that's what I'm looking at there.
That is huge. That is so good. Talking about the relationship you have with your own website. I got to give you props for that, Sue. I can't believe you don't think.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Sue. I want to say, there's a guy here in Santa Fe. It's a terrible website. I mean, the thing looks like it was designed in 1999. The guy does launches and sells books of like $300,000 a launch. Terrible website. Built up a huge list. And he's a writer. He's written over 30 books, and he just cranks it out, right? Just cranks out the content, and he's smart, and he's funny, and he knows who his ideal client is. And the fact that he doesn't have a beautiful website, he just is providing great content. So if you have to choose between one or the other, beautiful designer, right? Love you all, and you do great work. But I want to piggyback on what Sue's saying. If you have to choose, if you don't know how to use the site, you don't know what to say, or you're not sure what your content marketing strategy, the choice between a beautiful site and a do-it-yourself and getting help figuring out what is your content strategy, how are you going to make videos and get them on your site or blog or podcast or whatever you're going to do, I would vote for get the help to do the content marketing and spend less or nothing at all on the site until you're up and running and you're comfortable and you know how to do that. And then think about the fonts and the beautiful colors and the pictures, right? Yeah. Only have a small budget. Use it to know how to be current and present and engaging on the web. And don't use it to buy the beautiful site. So I really admire you saying that, Sue. And I feel that about all three of you. You really take a stand for that. And I have seen enough designers that don't. Sure, you want a beautiful site? Happy to make you a beautiful site. That'll be $5,000 or $2,000 or $20,000 and have a good life. And it's not going to work in today's economy. And I really appreciate that your willingness to take a stand.
But if you make it part of the strategy, then if somebody can invest in a $8,000 website, if they plan to then hire somebody to do the content management and the updating and where'd my gravatar go and how do I find it? Mm-hmm. I just went through this morning, where'd my gravatar go and how do I get it back? Took 15 minutes of work. So, if you build that in to the budget and the plan, then you can really do amazing stuff.
That is I think that's so huge, is what you just brought up, Sue, about, so you brought up earlier this if you build it, they will come mentality, which, sorry, but in 2016, with almost 200,000 websites launching every day, if you build it, they will not come. I'm sorry.
Yes.
You got to bring them there. So I think one thing that I run into a lot is there's this myth or this kind of misnomer or like this misunderstanding around online business as if starting an online business required less work, less planning, less strategy than starting a brick and mortar. Like, people have a misconception that, oh, I'll just throw up a website and then like it'll make me a bunch of money. But if they were launching a restaurant or a local dry cleaner or anything like that, they wouldn't just open the doors and be like, come on in, we'll make you something. You know, it is crazy.
Hey, I live in Santa Fe. Actually, there are restaurants like that, but you know,
okay, well,
I'm with you, Rachel. I'm with you.
Come on in, we've got Wi-Fi and we have great tea. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, all right. Well, you know, there is a place for that too. But what you said, I mean, for the people who want to just get up and running and have people come, even if they're not investing in the website or the marketing, well, you better have the content to back it up then. But I think it's all about going into the process. If you're ready to invest in a website or invest in a redesign, going into the process knowing that the website is actually just the beginning. It's where everything starts.
Right.
The website is going to work for you. Either you are going to learn WordPress, or you're going to DIY it on something like Squarespace, or you're going to hire someone to do it. But if you're not going to learn the tools, and you don't have the budget or the bandwidth or the interest in hiring someone to help you with the tools, and you just want to hire someone to make you a pretty website and then hope that site just magically makes you a billionaire, it's not going to happen. And I tell people to do a Squarespace site all the time. I will turn a sales call into a here's how you do it yourself call, you know, all the time. If I can tell that someone's about to dump the only money they have into a website, I'm like, no, you don't need a website. What you need is a coach, a copywriter, a photographer, fill in the blank. But a website is last on the list. So, yeah.
I learned this from Paul about standing out in a crowded marketplace. You know, 5 years ago when I started Magnolia's West 2.0, it was easier to be a heart-centered designer. There weren't as many. Now it's like to get somebody to peek into my tent, to take a look at my stuff and say, ooh, I want to hang out with you for a while, takes a lot. That's what this whole year has been about for me.
Yeah.
Was, okay, it's not working. It wasn't working for my business. My revenue was in the toilet. So it was time for me to really think, okay, the next iteration of my business, how am I going to, and I'm not being frivolous about this, stand out in a crowded marketplace and be, la-di-da, some kind of fancy-ass thing. No, but it's about what is it about me that's worth another look? Because there's a ton of people doing what I do, doing what we do now, and more every day. Those numbers are daunting, Rachel. Yeah, no shit. So, so that I think that's that makes what we do kind of critical, and for the right people, makes what we do an important thing.
Well, this conversation, I'd love to be here for days or weeks. And we've got some wonderful, wonderful people who've joined us on the line. So I'm going to unmute everybody, Jennifer and Dexter and Richard and our friend in 805 and our friend in 505. And so if you're on the telephone and not live on video, we have Monique, Rachel, and Sue. My name is Paul, and the lines are open. Questions that we haven't gotten to that you would love our esteemed panelists to talk about. Jennifer
has some comments, she says.
Oh, there she goes.
I do. Can I just talk? Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. I'm improvising with my camera because I am not prepared for.
Oh, you're upside down.
Yeah, we can. Hi,
Anyway.
Jennifer. How are you?
No. Well, unless I plug in the camera, I can't use the microphone. I'm still trying to figure this out. But anyway, just to share something with you guys, I have spent way more than I should have over the last couple of years. Partially what I learned, and I'm just saying this because I hope it helps everyone. I engaged with 2 separate web developers to SEO my site, which is now not even existent because of the catastrophe that ensued. But I wasn't super clear on what I wanted to say. And then the market, it was changing, and many things were in motion. This guy was in his 60s, and he was, had sort of learned it as an afterthought, how to do SEO. And he didn't listen to anything. And he put up a site for me that looked like it had been developed in the late 80s, which I lived through the late 80s, and that's all well and good. I lived through the late 80s in the Silicon Valley even, but I didn't want it to look like I was, backward, let's just say. My target audience was attorneys, and it just wasn't professional enough. And it was asking me to, it was everybody that I asked to develop a site for me and do the SEO part only cared that I got hits on the website. But that's not what I care about. I care about I meditate daily about the kind of client I want to work with. I don't care if it's accounting. The way I phrased it is I don't do diapers. Mm-hmm. So I want people that want to help themselves, that want to partner with me to move their situation forward. There's a very specific skill set I have, and just because most people don't know that skill set exists, so I've always been in a situation where people aren't looking for what I do because they don't know it exists. But I work the energy of that, and that's not a problem. I don't want to waste my time filtering off hits. I don't, it's, for me, most salespeople in any arena now, if you ask a substantive question, they're not able to answer it because the focus nowadays is all on a sale, right? So now, Paul referred me to somebody last week or the week before, and I had a call, a long call with her, and she asked me some very targeted questions like you ladies were talking about. And at the end of that, the next day I was supposed to do a webinar, but shockingly, the webinar that discussed how to do fixed bid pricing in accounting bookkeeping, which is by line item, turned out that it wasn't actually anything to teach me anything. It was actually something to sell this guy's service. So, but the questions were awesome. The woman, I don't know if it's appropriate to mention who it was because she's not one of the experts on this call, but
it's fine, Jennifer. We're pretty open. She's
is Serena Starleonard?
Yeah.
I knew it!
You knew it, Serena, right? Serena could have easily been here. And there's so many great designers in our...
Yeah, but she gave me some really, really good questions, and I thought at that moment that the next day I would be in a webinar that would help, and it didn't. But what ended up happening, which was really fascinating to me, is that yesterday about 4:30, my business line rang, and there was a very Harvard-educated attorney in LA wanting what I have to offer, wanting to know what my rates were. And within the first few sentences, he said, "You're the first person that knows what I'm talking about. And if I can put you on retainer, we can avoid going to trial." And then he emailed me between last night and this morning 3 times saying, "I'm waiting for your retainer invoice." So,
nice. Good job.
So, and it's just a few words. I took the time to ask him. I said, I'm just getting more and more disturbed by the lack of knowledge. And in my area, where the business side of what I do is that, people, and it's going to get worse because the people decide to sue each other, but they don't even know how to interpret the QuickBooks file they're looking at, right? So based on misunderstanding and lack of inquiry and curiosity, you've got people wanting to kill each other because they don't even understand what they're looking at, and the judges don't know either. And so the bottom line is that I've come to a place in my life where I want to be paid for my wisdom. Not necessarily only heart-based wisdom, but just, there's a lot of stuff, if people take the time to ask questions, isn't even conflict. It's just lack of understanding. So,
Jennifer, can I jump in? I want to say something to you. When Rachel was saying how the website's not the first thing or the last thing, it's
right.
one of the things. I'm paraphrasing. Sorry, Rachel. Oh, you're over there now. You moved on my screen. SEO is only one of the things. You sound like a really wise person. Are you blogging? Are you sharing your blog? Are you sharing your wisdom? Are you writing about it?
That's next step, and I only really realized that that's what I need to do within the last week since my conversation with Serena. So that's next up. I'm going to learn how to do video. Now I'm super clear. I'm super, super clear on what I want to do, but all the other people just, what was interesting to me about this last round, not Serena, but the 2 men I dealt with before, one was 30-ish, one was in his 60s, and none of them listened to me. And I'm just wondering, I loved what you ladies were saying about, the SEO and the website is just part of it, which is fine. The new thing I want to offer needs to be offered nationally, and there's only one other person that does it, and he's been doing it for 30 years. So I need sort of a clean way for people, because I'm moving to Colorado, so I need people to be able to find me. Right now, that's the priority. But
yeah, it sounds like, Jennifer, I'd double on what Sue's saying. It sounds like it's time to get intentional about some sort of content strategy so that people can get to know you before they're in that position of calling you up and saying, are you the one for me?
Yeah.
Proactively interact with your wisdom. So that's the
next
general thing. And I want to be a little aware of time, because we have to, unfortunately, wrap up this call. We might be able to hang out formally for those who want to, but we said we'd be here an hour and we're a little past that. So I got to.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I apologize. I just wanted to say how it's a relief to me to hear you three ladies talking about where the priority is and making sure that the person has their own voice associated with it, because that was what was such a big turnoff for me. From the beginning. And then once I let that go and I got a list of questions from Serena, even though I didn't think the answers came from someplace else than what I was expecting, I asked this guy, how did you find me? He said, I Googled QuickBooks Pro Advisor and Expert Witness, and you were the only one that popped nationally.
Nice. So you've got a niche there to be looking at. That's awesome.
So yeah, but it was just from people taking the time to listen. I just can't even say enough how important that is. So
thank you so much for being on the call, Jennifer. I do want to if you all need to go, I have a little bit more time, maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, but anybody who needs to go, we want to be very, very respectful of your time. So I want
my backup tea. I'm good.
You got your backup tea? Okay. Well, I'll clink
my OJ.
I got my water.
Oh my God! Everybody's got something now. The whole entire panel is now rehydrating, right?
But I did want to throw in there, I totally agree with both you and Sue, Paul, that the best thing, and this is just this is for me is a big pet peeve, is people who are still selling just SEO, like the concept that you can just SEO.
Oh gosh.
It's a racket. And here's the thing. This is the secret that people, and this is the thing that I'm always busting people's bubbles, and they're really disappointed to hear it. They're like, oh man, can't I just pay you a bunch of money to do this? But literally the best thing, the only thing, the number one thing you can do for your SEO is content. That's it. Getting visible, not only on your own site, but also guest blogging, being on people's podcast, getting links. But it really is about creating content that people want to share. No longer are we in the days of I can manipulate my site to be at the top of search engine. If I'm not creating things that people want to hear and that they want to engage with, I'm just going to go down, down, down. So the number one thing that you can do for SEO is something that an SEO company typically can't do for you most of the time, which is create amazing and just consistent new content. So it's my SEO PSA. It breaks my heart when people come to me and tell me I spent thousands of dollars on SEO. And I'm like, what? No. So
that's on the pet peeve shelf for me, along with the companies that specialize in an industry. Like we do websites for lawyers, and they're cheap. They come in at like $1,500, and then you pay them $3.99 a month for freaking ever to maintain your site.
That's cheap, isn't it, Sue?
And they all look the same except the logo is different.
The picture,
accent color is different, but they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's do this. I want to be respectful of people's times. And so if you have questions, please feel free to put them here and I'll get them to our esteemed guests and we can put them on the page and continue the conversation.
What was Dexter's question?
Dexter's question. How do I get to, all right, we'll ask the question. What can I ask of a designer to know, and the word know is capitalized, that she or he gets me? What can I ask of a designer to know that she really gets me?
I think you got to just be like Monique and listen. It doesn't matter what you ask me. Just listen to me. Just lean into me. You'll know in 7 minutes whether I hear you, get you, and can help you. I think it's the substance and the flavor and the depth of the connection that is more important than the right question.
I think you can't. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with Sue. Like I do business on a very intuitive level. So even when I decide to work with a client, it's because I know that I can help them to get the result that they want. And similarly, when I'm hiring somebody, like I made that decision in the first few seconds, and it's always like, this feels like a good fit for me. I know that not everybody is so tapped into their intuition and into, those feelings, but so it's very hard for me to give you an answer outside of intuition. But I feel like if you know, like we all know when somebody is a good fit for you, when they understand you, when your questions are being answered in a way that fits well with you, then that's how you know.
Thanks, Monique.
Rachel, did you have something? Because I had one more little bit.
Go ahead. I do, but if you're enthusiastic, do it.
I also have done this a little bit, and when somebody is new to me and I'm new to them, and they're talking about a $5,000 to $10,000 investment with me, I sometimes will say, let's do some preliminary work first. Like let's do some brand development work stuff, and look at everything that you've got, and let's do a contract for 2 months for $1,200, and then whether or not you continue with me, you're going to have stuff to take with you to the designer that you end up working that you can use. So that's another way too, is to propose that. Can I do some of it with you first and see? Because I'm not sure.
I love that. I've been moving into that more myself. It's because it's naturally come up that people need a little bit more prep work, and they need to think of it as prep work before we go into the full deep dive. And I mean, it does come down to following your intuition. I think if you feel that your designer on the call with you or whatever doesn't get you, they don't get you. I mean, probably. I mean, if you're feeling that, it's probably true. I think for me as a designer, like what I'm always, from the perspective of being on a sales call and hoping that the client feels gotten and hoping that I'm actually getting them, I'm always trying to, just as Monique said, deeply listen. And then I try to then repackage what the person has said and put it back to them. So this is what I hear that you're telling me. This is who you are, and this is where you're going, and this is how you think it. And I can gauge, for me as a designer, if I've got a good fit with the client, if their reaction back to me is one of relief and excitement of, oh yes, you just said it. Finally, somebody has it. Now, if I get that back from the client, I'm feeling pretty good that I've got it, and if I don't get that back from the client after I've done my listening and then paraphrasing and putting it back to them, I start to get the feeling for myself that I don't get them as a client, right? And that maybe I'm going to steer them at the end of our call because, I'm the kind of designer that if I feel that we don't have a good connection or that this isn't the right investment or whatever, I will tell you that in the sales call, and I'll say, I don't think you need to invest, or I'm going to refer you to Monique or whatever it might be. So if you get that feeling in the call with someone where you're like, oh my gosh, yes, they nailed it the way that nobody has before, then they probably get you. And if you're not getting that feeling, then, maybe you just keep looking for the love. Looking for love.
Great. Well, time for us to end. I wish we could do more. Maybe we will do more, right? But before we end, how do people get a hold of you? Let's start with Sue. Sue, how do people get a hold of you?
Good way is on my website, magnoliaswest.com. That's more than one Magnolia, MAGNOLIAS West.com. And also have a Facebook page and a Twitter handle, both of which are Magnolias West.
Thank you so much, Sue. Monique, how do people get a hold of you?
So you can visit my website, MoniqueWelch.com. It's WELCH for Welch. People spell it with an S. I'll also type it in the chat, but it's MoniqueWelch.com.
Thanks, Monique. Rachel, how do people get a hold of you?
RKInc.com. That's RKAINK.com. Find me there. All my social stuff is there.
Great. Thanks so much. And my name is Paul Zelizer. You can get a hold of me, paulzelizer.com, ZELIZER. So thank you, everyone, so much who's listened live. You know how to get a hold of these. Are really generous folks, and they're all very active. They create content. They've got great blogs and videos and podcasts and all kinds of things. They're active on social media. These are folks who care and are willing to engage. I can say that from experience as I try to be myself. So if there's something we didn't get to and you're like, oh, I didn't get a chance to, your chance is not over. The conversation just started. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Somebody who wants to listen to this, I'll take the recording and Zoom and post it on the original page. So thank you, everyone, and be well. Thanks, Monique, Rachel, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.